The world has gone a little bit soft. Let's be honest. You don't get given anything for free.
Do you see yourself as a better promoter than any of these guys minus Don?
Man, I don't like the way Don King does business.
By the way, 1.6 million pay-per-view, $80 million in revenue, a fight between those two.
Yeah, I would say that's 100% not true. But he came out today and said, I want to fight Eddie.
I will fight Eddie for free.
Oscar de la Hoya, you know, me and him are like this.
Yeah. What happened with you guys?
So at point, you have to walk away and go, I don't need to do this anymore.
You just presented yourself as extremely confident that not just you're great.
You know, me and Jake, I've got a big defamation case against him at the moment.
But you called me average after 1 minute. After 1 minute of my first professional fight?
No, but you're still average.
I'm being honest. He's very average.
Is this the $1 million bet you guys made?
Maybe we can talk about $1 million, but we'll have a chat.
Let's do $1 million.
I don't know. I don't want to see Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson. Example of a fighter that's been misrepresented and abused is Mike Tyson.
Biggest losing fight for you business-wise?
We sold out, but the pay-per-view flopped.
You lost money on that?
Yeah, no. Probably my best example of that is Canelo Alvarez. Just don't ever make decisions based off emotion again. You know, like, he beat the shit out of you, don't you? So the guy was a pound-for-pound great fighter.
You think you're on a different level?
Different level.
What do you think he's in pursuit of?
Ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close, I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving value's contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to hate it. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
Okay, so we have one of the greatest promoters of all time in the house today. He's represented some of the biggest fights, Anthony Joshua, Canelo Alvarez, Triple G. I can give you a bunch of names. And I don't know why. When he gets on the camera, people want to see what this guy has to say. Talks a lot of shit and entertaining, funny. It's the one and only Eddie Hearn. It's great to have you here,
Thank you. Firstly, you've got your own rap theme tune.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm straight away getting on the phone to my guys. I want one of those.
We got to get it for you.
Yeah, I want one.
No, we got to get it for you. Especially now, this next, the fact that you're considering changing your career into politics. You need one. You need to get into that. But I want to start off with this. So when I was looking into the story about what I know you as is the promoter, right? And then when you get into, you're like, let me a little bit more. You study your pops, and there's a couple clips about your dad I'm watching. I'm like, this guy fires me up, right? And then I find this clip of your dad's 10 rules for a life. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Or no? I'm going to read this to people that haven't seen it. So number 1, it's better to be born lucky than good looking. Number 2, tell the truth. It's easier than telling lies. Number 3, sheer work ethic can make you look like a genius. Number 4, pressure is only felt by those who fail. Number 5, you will run a better business and life if you think poor. Number 6, unusual things happen every day of your life. How you deal with them makes you unusual. 7, life ends in tears, so smile the rest of your life. 8, your life does not change by sitting on the sofa. 9, avoid being a secret, and I love this one, by the way. If you're good, then admit to it. If you're great, then shout it from the rooftops. And number 10, when you need a hand, you're more likely to get a kick in the nuts. When you need no help, there will be a queue of people wanting to give you things. One of life's greatest mysteries. How influential was he in shaping your mindset, getting that competitive edge that you have today?
Everything. I mean, you know, I'm kind of like first generation money, but now things have changed a lot from when I was growing up in terms of our business and the success of it. So how we grew up wasn't how my kids are growing up, for example, because things have gone very well for us. But he was adamant that I wouldn't be a spoiled rich kid. You know, he calls me Silver Spoon. This is this joke between us, and I always tell him that I turned it gold, you know. And we always joke about it. But I think that as you get a little bit older, you start to reflect on your childhood. Yeah. And my childhood was, not a lot of people get it, the way that I was brought up. Like, the world has gone a little bit soft, let's be honest. And a couple of those points, you know, in that top 10 are very consistent with my childhood, which is work, 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 work. You know, you don't get given anything for free. When things get tough, You wake up an hour earlier, you go to bed an hour later. Everything is resolved by hard work. And winning is everything. Don't ever let anyone tell you that taking part, or losing is acceptable. The only reason you play, the only reason you're in business is to win. And I'm not saying necessarily this is for everyone. This is just the way that I was brought up. So, he always put a lot of pressure on me to perform and to succeed. The thing is, for me growing up was, I grew up around boxing since I was 7 years old. My dad was a Hall of Fame promoter. He was a very influential and well-known figure in the UK. And I was always Barry's boy. My dad's Barry Hearn, right? So everyone knew me as Barry's boy. No one knew my name. And growing up at 13, 14, 15, I quite liked that because I was like, my dad is, we got Nazim Hamed, we got Lennox Lewis, we got all these guys my dad represents, and I'm in the corner and I'm walking out with them with the belts. And I probably struggled a little bit with my own identity, and I wanted to be a star. I wanted to be the successful businessman. I wanted to be a winner. And I grew up around sport. Sport molded my personalities. All of my best assets and my best qualities were built around sport, not through education. And that's why I'm very passionate about it in the UK as well, about what it can do for young people. But it was win, 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 win. And that's exactly how I've been brought up. And I never wanted to work for my dad because everyone said to me, oh, you're only going to go and work for your dad. You're only going to... And it took me about 6 or 7 years working in the sports industry to really realize I had to give my heart and soul to the legacy that he built. And, I take the business very personally. It's something that he dedicated his entire life to and made so many sacrifices for. And the only way that I can win in life is to be much better than him, to take the business to levels that he couldn't take it. And that's our little competition. It doesn't matter whether we're playing ping pong or cricket in the garden. We're always at it, me and my dad, always. And that's the competitive spirit that he built in me. Not a genius by any stretch of the imagination, but will never be outworked by any of my competitors.
So let me ask you this. So you went away from working with him and then you went back to want to work with him?
I never worked for him. When I left college, I just said, look, so I went out, I wrote to all the big sports marketing companies, IMG, Advantage International, Octagon. And I said, I wanted to be a sports agent. I wanted to represent athletes because I was a failed athlete. I mean, I was a good athlete, but never good enough.
What did you play?
Played cricket at a very high level and a few other sports, but I was never good enough to go professional. So for me, that was the next best thing.
By the way, the audience needs to know this. I'm 6'4". He's 6'5". So you're a big guy. In boxing, I know you represented Josh. You represent Joshua. He's 6'8". He's a big dude. But promoters, you don't find him 6'5".
No, that's one of the first things that people say to me. Is my size. But I wrote off to all these major sports agencies, and went for quite a few interviews. And one company, sort of sat me down, looked at my CV, said, "Can I ask you a question? Are you any relation to Barry Hearn?" And I said, "Yes, my dad." I said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I don't want to work for him." So I got a job there and worked for about 6 years for 2 different sports agencies. I was representing golfers on the European and the PGA Tour around the world. Yeah, good. I mean, built a very successful department within the agency. I just, and this is something that resonates with me now. My heart was in the business, but my soul was in the family business. I sort of looked at what my dad went through, and it took him many years, by the way, to be successful, and took us 40 years to be at the level that we're at now as a business. And I just felt like if I'm bleeding, sweat and tears, I should be doing it.
When did you go back to him? When did you go back and say, let's run together?
In my sort of mid to late 20s.
What year would that be?
I'm 45 now, so you're talking about 20 years ago.
Is this after the heart attack or is this pre?
He's had a few actually. This was after his heart attack.
I'm talking about the one that he almost lost everything, bankruptcy. I think it's 2002 when this happened.
Yeah, I mean that was a period of various different things going wrong. Obviously, a terrible economic time in the UK as well. But for many years, his business was up, down. I mean, he's a very different to me in the respect of he's a chance taker, but sometimes when you have nothing, it's easier to take chances.
I want to show a clip because the audience has to know how your dad is, Rob. Can you play that clip I found earlier? This one right here. I just can watch this on repeat. Go ahead and play this clip. Go for it.
I had this thing with my children about I love them so much, but when it comes down to it, are they going to be good enough in this world? You know, when Dad's not there. I mean, Eddie's a great example. I can't believe how he's turned out. He's a credit to me and what he does, and he's got a tremendous work ethic, and he doesn't need to have, and yet there's something inside. And that's what everyone's got to find. They've got to find that inner strength that takes them past ordinary people if they want to be special.
What were the most important characteristics that you would have demonstrated or nurtured in him that gave him that drive?
I think it's just lessons. I mean, everything in our house is competitive. I play table tennis with my grandchildren on a Sunday. I don't let them win a point. Not a point. They win a point, they've won a point themselves. Every now and again, Bazza, can't you let us win one? But it's getting closer, and it's only a matter of time. And I was like that with Eddie. You know, we'd play cricket. I wouldn't hold back. I'd bowl flat out to him, no matter what age he was. Want to be in this game? We'll find out. I famously took him down to the gym, and we had what was supposed to be a proper 3-round fight. He dropped me twice in the second round. We never had the third round. I had this.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah, people, that was in the paper in the UK. Like, people, that had a real mixed response. Like, it's not, it's quite unusual, but actually when you think about it, it's not. So I was quite flash as a kid, right? 14, 15, 16, because of how I grew up. And I boxed a little bit as an amateur. I had like a couple of fights, no good, but game. And he always said to me, when you get to 18, I'm going to take you down a gym. We're going to get the gloves on, and we're going to spar. And I'm going to give you a pasting, and I'm going to show you the difference from where I came from to where you came from.
He's a street guy.
Yeah. And that's what it's going to be all about. I said, yeah, fair enough. Anyway, I got to 16, and I was like 6'1", you know, already quite a size.
How big is he?
He's about the same, 6'1". And he sort of said, look, I think we should bring it forward a couple of years. So I was like, all right, look, I don't mind. And I'll never really forget it, because we went to the gym where he had his fighters train, and everyone was watching. And we put the gloves on, quite small for sparring as well.
Yeah.
And the bell went, and I just saw him come out, and he sort of backed me up in the corner, and I covered up, and I looked at his face, and his teeth, you know, and his gum shield was like, and he was just raining them in round the side of my head. And I thought, he ain't playing. Do you know what I mean? And I'm taking him, and after, like, because he wasn't as fit. And then I think it was the second round, you know, it was quite competitive, and he really started to tire. And we got up close, and I just lifted him up to the body, and he took a knee. And I'm like looking at him on the floor. And he's like, you know, the guys are counting the count. He gets up at 8. And then I walked him down, backed him up, and done him. And he turned over, you know, rolling around on the floor. He's out. And the next day, it was all in the papers, because when he was doing some interviews about some show he was telling everyone like it was the greatest day of his life. Oh, my son, you wouldn't believe what my son did to me. I would have been embarrassed, you know what I'm saying? That my son beat me up. He was like, oh, he's proper.
I totally
he's proper,
get it.
You know.
I get that.
But we did an interview with Piers Morgan recently, and he was talking about it, and he was like, look, I got to be honest, this is not really normal. And he's like, what's the matter with you? Of course it's
Piers
normal.
is saying it's not normal.
And my dad's saying, what are you talking about? Of course it's normal.
Yeah.
You know, all this would be quite frowned upon. And he said, oh, you know, that was his way. And like he said about the table tennis, like literally against my daughter, who is 15, he is diving on the crutch. He beat her 21-19 the other week, right? It was so close. And he was sweating, diving around. And when he won, yes, like running around, the celebrations. And she's like looking at him going, Granddad, like, he's like, oh, you're so close. I reckon a couple more weeks and you're going to get me, you know. And it's not for everyone, but that's what built me.
So a couple of reasons why I'm asking you this question is because I have a son who is like your relationship, you and your father's relationship. And by the way, both of you guys are Geminis.
Correct.
You're 8th, he's 19th, June 8th and June 19th. I'm a Libra, my son is a Libra.
Right.
And he's a psycho competitor. And God forbid if we play and I don't let him beat me in nothing, nothing. And when he loses, it is not a pretty sight when he loses. When you lost, were you upset?
Yeah, always. I sulked. I hate losing.
Yeah.
Hate it. You know, and as you become a little bit older and a bit more successful, like things change a little bit. But especially as a kid playing sports, bad loser. Bad loser.
You were?
Yeah. Like, and that's okay. I always say to my fighters, you know, when AJ loses or anything like that, give him a day or two, and I will sit down and say, "Are you okay?" You know, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm okay." Does it hurt? And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Is it killing you that you lost?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Good," because it's got to really fucking hurt, bad. Like
it's gotta or it's gonna.
It's got to.
If it doesn't hurt, how do you get back into it and train?
And that's when it's time to maybe look at your future. If it doesn't eat you up, if you don't, virtually cry yourself to sleep, if you're not struggling to sleep, if you're not replaying that fight back in your head and feeling the pain of defeat, maybe it's time.
You ever had one when you sat across one, you're like, this guy's done?
Yeah, loads of, times where even after the fight, you go back to the hotel and you can just see a fighter. One of my best friends in the sport, a guy called Darren Barker, who's my first world champion, won the world middleweight title in Atlantic City. He had a lot of injuries in his career. His next fight, that was like the pinnacle of winning the world title. No one expected him to do it.
Yeah.
And then the next fight, he took a big payday against Felix Sturm in Germany. He had bad hips, and during the fight, he got injured and he got stopped in, I think, 2 rounds. And we went back to the hotel. And he sat back, and I think his mum bought him a beer, and I just looked at him sit back and go, oh. And he just took a sip of his beer, and I looked at him, I went, you're done, aren't you? And he went, yeah.
But have you ever had it where they thought they're continuing, but no, this guy's done, where you got to tell them to their face?
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. A fighter will always want to fight. I mean, it's so easy to say just one more, But in the fight game, just one more can be devastating in many ways. And I just feel like sometimes legacy can be kept intact, especially if you're Anthony Joshua. I mean, he just lost by knockout for the world heavyweight title. It's a fight where he was a slight favourite for. And now everyone's on him because this is the British way. He went on a run of 4 wins and everyone's like, he's back. He's better than ever. And then he loses for the world heavyweight title. He should retire. He's done. And that moment, that's when you really got to think, you got to see the desire. But boxing's a little bit different. You got to be physically 100%. If you start fading, if you start taking too many shots, if you're not, as robust as you used to be, especially in the heavyweight division, becomes very dangerous. And that's all down to relationships with the fighters to make sure you can have those honest conversations. Because when I feel like it's time for him, I will be saying, mate, and I believe when I say that, I think he'll go, I'm done. Because he will listen to a few around him that he will always want to fight. Because imagine how scary it is. You've dedicated your whole life to something. Boxing is so regimental. And this is why it saves people from certain environments and situations, because it actually gets their life in a structure. So you wake up in the morning, you do your run, you go back to bed, you go back to the gym, you spar 12 rounds, you come back, you get your physio, you go to sleep. You wake up tomorrow, you do the same thing. And when that leaves your life, fighters really struggle after that, because what else? I mean, that's all they do. And the buzz of fighting, the walking out in front of 90,000, all of a sudden that goes in your life. And that's why it's got to be, that void has got to be filled with something that you have a passion for. Maybe that's being a trainer, maybe that's staying in the game.
Is there a way to size them up? Like, for example, in football, NFL, there was this guy, quarterback from the Oakland Raiders, something Russell. This guy gets a big contract, boom, he's done. You don't see anything from him. Jamarcus Russell, right? And in the NBA, there's certain guys, you pay them, it's over with. Baseball, this guy got paid, nothing happens after. It's like, what happened to you, right? How do you, when these guys all of a sudden, like, some guy said, Conor McGregor's best fights was pre him becoming rich. And one of the quotes by your dad is what? It says, you will run a better business in life if you think you're poor, right? The poor mentality, the broke mentality, not poor mentality, but you keep that hunger. Do you shape their mindset? Like, I remember when we sold our insurance company and we got a few $100 million. And I'm sitting there with my wife and we're talking to Monica, and I said, babe, life's about to change in a big way. You're no longer a millionaire. We have money. I'm still going to work the next day. And I don't like it if you just want to go to the spa every day and just go hang out. I'm not attracted to that. And you have to know, I'm still going 80 hours a week, right? And we're having this conversation, and I said, family's going to call you. Everyone's going to want money. Everyone's going to tell you this. Everyone's going to, and we're having this 3.5-hour conversation, and it's like a moment of joy, and you're emotional, but at the same time, it's like, hey, I'm not losing my edge. I'm going on a 40-year run. I'm having that conversation with her. And my wife, till today, 5 days a week, she's at the office. Every day, she comes in the office with me and boom, works hard herself till today. Kudos to her. But while you're going through this and you're picking one of your fighters, how do you shape their mindset when you know this guy's about to make the kind of money he's been waiting for his entire life? He hasn't made it yet. I'm talking real money. How do you have that conversation with him to see how he's going to be the next thing when he sees the money in the bank account?
I mean, that's about personal relationship, but a lot of that has to come from within. There's very few characters and very few competitors and athletes that don't change when the legacy and the money hit. Probably my best example of that is Canelo Alvarez, right? There's a guy who's got hundreds of millions, right? Used to sell ice pops on the street of Guadalajara, came from absolutely nothing, and now is making $40, $50 million a fight. He doesn't even need to fight anymore. He trains, and AJ, but he trains with the same hunger that he had when he was fighting a 4-round fight at 17 years of age.
What do you think he's in pursuit of? What's he in pursuit of?
I just think they're winners. I just think they're winners. I just think the ones, we all know, the key word, consistency. That's the one thing that's always going to provide you with success. If you work hard enough and if you've got talent, you're unbeatable. The only thing that's going to stop Canelo Alvarez is Father Time. That's all. And eventually it'll catch up with him. But how do you, especially boxing, boxing, such a tough sport. Like, today I was up at Delray Beach. I was watching our 140-pound light welterweight world champion Liam Sparrow spar 10 rounds, right? No money in the spar, just the preparation. All out war. You know what I mean? Like, this wasn't someone who was like knocking some balls around a court. This was a fight in a gym with no one watching. At what point do you come from nothing, build 300 or 400 million, you've got your properties, everything, and you go, I want those hard cards. Give me those hard, come hit me. And it's like, what point do you have to walk away and go, I don't need to do this anymore? And that's where you've got to keep that relationship, because when that hunger goes, you've got to get them out.
Would you put Mayweather in that same league as
Mayweather
Canelo?
Just love money.
Mayweather loves money. So you're saying Canelo
loves money, but Mayweather was different. Mayweather was a guy that was spending. He loved money. He loved racking money up. Don't forget that he had a passion for the sport. Passion is key to everything. You talk about your wife going into the office. There's a reason for that. She loves to do it. You can't, it's not because, I'm sure there's an obligation and, it's a team and all that kind of stuff. But there's a drive and there's a passion and there's a fire. Otherwise, like it's with me. I work all day, every day, no breaks ever. I love what I do. And if I didn't love what I do, you keep going, but not with the same intensity, not with the same passion.
Yeah, fascinating. Going back to these guys, Canelo, Mayweather, when you see something like the Jake Paul and the Mike Tyson thing coming up right now, I've heard you make comments about it already, and I even remember your interview with Jake. Matter of fact, if you have that clip, Rob, and I love the way you're doing it, and you know what I love about this clip? Well, let me first have the audience watch this. This is Eddie. You're telling Jake he's average, and you're trying to tell him that, trust me telling you you're average is a compliment, and he's having a hard time with it. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob.
In 1 minute, how do you even assess how good I was?
Well, because I said I didn't know. And actually,
but you called me average after 1 minute. But you called me after 1 minute of my first professional fight.
No, but you're still average. You're not.
That's not true. I just beat a 5-time world champion.
A UFC.
You don't even know. You don't know my ability though.
That's true. That's true.
You don't.
I don't know where you might go. I just give you where I think you're at, which I'm entitled to, which is average. Average is very complimentary to you.
Are you trying to get under his skin at the time? Is it 50-50 trying to get under his skin a little bit?
In that kind of arena, one, it's about entertainment. Yeah. Two, I'm being honest, he's very average as a fighter, as a professional. But what I was trying to sort of explain to him was, as a professional fighter, someone that's dedicated their life to the sport, from most people from the ages of 7 or 8, you started boxing at 24. You are average in that field. That's an unbelievable achievement. Do you know what I mean? I'm not average at boxing. I'm terrible. So you're so much better than me and so many other fighters who have dedicated their life to the sport. And then after a while, it's just about fucking with him a little bit, And me and Jake, I've got a big defamation case against him at the moment. And this week, my fighter, Katie Taylor, greatest female fighter of all time, is fighting his fighter, Amanda Serrano, on that undercard.
Is this the $1 million bet you guys made, or you guys didn't end up making?
No, that was before. Yeah, I won the fight, but he didn't apparently make the bet, and whatever. But we won the first fight. This is the rematch this Friday and it's on the undercard of the Jake Paul.
This the one in Dallas.
Correct, which is a bit awkward because he doesn't really want me there, and I've been quite critical of the main event, but the opportunity came for my fighter to fight on the undercard for a lot of money, and I wasn't going to, hold her back.
Now, can he say you can't come, or no, you can go to...
Contractually, not really. I mean, they've not been overly helpful with access for me.
Got it.
And, I'm exclusive to DAZN, so is Katie Taylor, and I had to tell DAZN, you can't not let her take this opportunity. This is on Netflix. But part of the agreement, gentleman's agreement, was that, they wouldn't want me doing it anyway, but I won't be pushing the show on their behalf. And, they don't like the fact that I've been critical about the fight, but it's just, I'm honest. I'm not going to, brown nose anyone. I'm going to give you it straight. And I don't like it. I'm a boxing purist. Boxing's a massive part of my life. And I don't want to see a 58-year-old Mike Tyson fighting. It's dangerous. And, people talk about, there could be some, maybe there's a agreement between them that this will happen, that will happen. Now you've got 14-ounce gloves, 2-minute rounds. I don't know. I don't want to see Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson at 58, but many will, and I get it.
When Tyson fought Roy Jones, who do you think was going to take it? Did you have an opinion on it, or?
To be honest with you, Roy Jones is absolutely shot to pieces, and he's been fighting for way too long. Like everybody in boxing knows that guy. So when they both get in the ring, but how long ago was that? 4 years ago?
But I tell you, I couldn't believe that he was standing up. I couldn't believe he, by the way, 1.6 million pay-per-view, $80 million in revenue, a fight between those two.
No.
Wow.
No, that's
what it says right there on the bottom.
That's hearsay.
With 3 original examiners and judges as well as scored a call. The fight sold over 1 point. Can you go to the link to see who wrote it? You're saying that's not true?
Bleacher Report.
I would say that's 100% not true.
Really?
A lot of the time you get, that could be a global number, that could be a replay number. A lot of the time, every time someone fights on pay-per-view, the numbers that come out are all over the place. You got the haters within the industry that will be feeding the media with lowball numbers. And then you've got the people involved with the fight feeding, I've done it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Feeding real big numbers to try and get the message across that it was a huge success. That fight, I believe, took place on Triller. But, 1.6 million, no, I don't think so. But, that would also be a global number. So maybe 1 million buyers, but I don't believe, certainly not in the US market. But, that was a while ago now, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, you're right.
It was 2020, 4 years ago. Yeah.
So this fight, for you, the way you sounded like, you're saying Jake's going to take this one.
I'd be astonished if he didn't. You got a young guy, right, who's average, but can fight a little bit.
Sure.
But the one thing I will always respect him for is he's dedicated himself to the craft now for 4 or 5 years. Okay, so he's training properly. He's doing proper training camps. He's definitely improving. Punches pretty hard, like physical guy. And then you've got Mike Tyson, who's 58 years of age. What you have to understand is Mike Tyson retired from boxing about 25 years ago. When he did, he was completely spent. That was 25 years ago.
That's pretty wild thinking about it.
58 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 45. I think you're 46.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like we feel like, don't we? We're still there, don't we? This guy's 15 years or 14 years older than me. And if I went in there against Jake Paul now, he'd probably demolish me. I'm not Mike Tyson, but as Father Time, there's no replacement. Yeah. You could see, listen, people say, but people are buying into the fact that it's but it's Mike Tyson and surely he still carries the power. And
is there any chance Mike could drop him?
There's a chance in every form of boxing. And Mike Tyson's a big guy. He's a former world heavyweight champion. But the speed and the power and listen, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
I think you want
I'd love to wake up and
say... How much is he getting paid for, by the way?
I don't know. I have no idea. It's not a pay-per-view fight. It's quite interesting. It's subscription only on Netflix, which is great. It's going to do huge numbers. I would say 10 million.
10 million?
Yeah, I would say 10 million.
So some of the guys that are still fighting, it's purely a money thing. They need to make the money to make the money.
But a lot of them, Patrick, a lot of fighters have been, probably the greatest fighter, the greatest example of a fighter that's been misrepresented and abused is Mike Tyson. The money that was generated in his career, The reality is probably 5 years ago, he was out of money.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually had a good run now doing various bits and pieces. But how can you make hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars? And, you know, and that's a very common theme, particularly with fighters in the 80s. Like, things have changed now. The fights, I always say, and people like Aram, even my dad, you know, Frank Warren, they really struggle. I say this, every fighter that I represent is my boss. It doesn't matter if they're in a 4-round fight on their debut or they're fighting for every belt in a division for 100 million. I work for them. And it's very difficult for those old school guys to have that same mentality, because back in the day, the promoter, you work for the promoter. You know, that's why people like Don King, you know, when he was representing Mike Tyson, he was the boss. Mike did as he's told. Now, it's a complete flick.
When did it change?
I would say, like, Mayweather probably did a lot of it. You know, Mayweather kind of set the way for fighters being their own bosses. You know, no, I control the revenue. Because that, for me, is the purest form of the business. You give a fighter a purse, right? You're fighting for the world middleweight title. I'm giving you $1 million. You look at it with your team, you look at the deal, you accept it. When the fighter gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, you move to an open book policy, which for me is the perfect structure to have a great relationship with a fighter. I did it with Anthony Joshua, many other fighters. You sit down, you know, most of the time it's with the guys that really understand the business. Floyd, this is where Floyd comes in. You look at the revenue, projected revenue you know that exists. The gate, you know that's selling out 100%. The pay-per-view is always subjective to the night, but you know if you're a big name fighter, the region it's going to be in, the closed circuit television, the commercial sponsorship, the international rights, all the revenue. And you say to the fighter, this is the costs of the show. Okay? This is the undercard, this is the venue hire, hotels, flights, etc., etc., etc. You cap the costs. It's an open book. The net profit of the show goes to the fighter, and the promoter takes 20%. And you never, because what happens is a fighter,
20 of net.
Yes, 20 of net.
Not gross.
No, net, because you agree to costs.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So if it starts at 20 million, how much is going to end up being cost?
I mean, you know, if you're talking about the costs of a show, could be anywhere between $1.5 and $3 million to run a show.
So let me ask you then, if it's the guy's getting paid $6 million, it doesn't matter. The 1.5 is fairly consistent.
Sometimes, but maybe the cost of the undercard would decrease.
Less.
If it's a mega show, you want other world title fights on, et cetera, et cetera.
Right,
Ticket prices are through the roof. You want to deliver a great night of boxing. It all depends. But generally, that concept is only for the huge names. Canelo, Floyd, AJ, you know, these kind of names. The others might just say, I just want my purse. Just, I don't want to look at any numbers. Just tell me how much I'm getting. The problem with that is they never, you know, they walk into a venue, they go, how much money is he making? You know, how many pay-per-view buys did it do? And then, like that, someone says, it did 2 million buys. It did, what? The promoter's made 50 million. That's why I love the open book, because it's so transparent, you know, and I'm happy with those margins. You know, you talk about AJ, these guys making, you know, 40, 50, 60 million a fight, you know, and sometimes that 20% will decrease over time when a fighter starts making more money, because they might say to you, actually, 20% is a lot of money. And most of the time I go, yeah, I mean, I think we're responsible for a lot of your success, but I also think you're right. It is a lot of money. So moving forward, it's 15. You know, I think you've got to be fair and you've got to be honest and you've got to be transparent. That's how you build long-term relationships with talent.
What is the role you play? So because the art of a promoter, I'm fascinated by promoters. What's the role of a promoter? Because it's got to be different than you got the agent, you got the manager. What role is the promoter playing? What are you doing with me? I'm a fighter. What kind of conversations are we having?
So many different levels to it. I mean, taking me aside for now, the company, the business, you know, when you're talking about away from the shows and you're pitching to an athlete, you've just turned professional, right? You need to be guided in the correct way. You need to have regular activity, 5 or 6 fights a year. You're going to have six round fights a year. You're going to be able to build your profile. You're going to be able to make sure the matches are made against the right opposition. We're going to build you internationally. We're going to put you in America, in London, in Saudi Arabia, in Mexico, and we're going to give you all the experience you need to mold you into a championship fighter. Now, the business, when you talk about what is their role, absolutely everything. From the TV deals,
Their role, meaning the
promotional
role.
company.
Not agent, not manager, not these guys.
The manager's role is really to deal with the promoter. I got to be honest with you. For me, I always feel like if you've got an honest promoter, the manager's job is sometimes a little bit redundant, but it's a middle ground to push.
Do you guys not get along? Like, do managers and promoters typically have fights? Who has fights with who? Who doesn't? Friction is where?
So a promoter's job is to pay the right money for the fighter, as in for the show and for the fighter to make the business work.
Right.
The manager don't give a fuck about the promotional business. They just want as much money as possible for their fighter.
Got it.
A lot of them get it. A lot of them don't. And the fascinating thing, and that's why boxing is such a tough business, there are no barriers to entry in boxing. So tomorrow you could wake up and go, I like that chat with Eddie Hearn. I think I'm going to manage fighters. Right? And next thing, you're phoning me up saying, can I come and see you? Because guess what? I'm now representing this guy, and this guy. And I'm like, okay. And we have a meeting. You go, I've been thinking, I think this guy should get $10 million. I'm like, on what planet? No, but I think that's, Saudi Arabia and this and that. And, and now I'm saying, no. I'll tell you what, I'll show you the P&L for the show. And you tell me how he should get $10 million. I'm not really interested in that. I just, and that's like the frustration of the business. It's not a normal business. You're not dealing with people who have gone through the educational process about a P&L in boxing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just dealing with someone who said, I don't care what it says.
Well, let me tell you, did you see the interview with The Rock when I asked him about the negotiation he did with Vince McMahon? He said something so interesting. I said, so Vince McMahon, he built a $10 billion company. What was it negotiating with him? And he said, how long is it? It's too long, but I'll just tell you what he said. He says, one day I go to Vince, I say, hey, Vince, I've been doing great and I want to get paid. He says, okay, great. What do you want to get paid? He says, what does Stone Cold Austin get paid? Steve. He says, $1 million. He says, I want to get paid $2 million. He says, can I ask you how you came up with that number? So he says, the way I came up with that number is I just want to get paid twice as much as what the number one guy's getting paid. And he says, okay, fair. But do you mind if we do something? And The Rock says, what? He says, do you mind if we take the next 2 or 3 months, you work with the CFO in accounting and see exactly how this thing works out? So The Rock says, fine. So he says, it took a few weeks. I go and spend time with the CFO and the accountants. And then I realize I can't ask for $2 million. So he comes back and he says, look, 3 weeks later, they have the follow-up meeting. He says, so what do you want to do? He says, well, listen, I'll be happy with the $1 million. He says, no, let me tell you what I want to do. I want to tie it for you. You'll get your $1 million. But if you perform and sell these out, I want to pay you above and beyond. So The Rock says, fine. Year goes by. Vince sits down with him. He says, so what do you think you made last year? He says, I don't know, about $1 million. He says, no, you made $15 million. He said, what? He says, that's when I realized the game, the business aspect of the business, right? More I got involved, I realized the more I can sell tickets, the more I can move. They make money, I'll make money. But you're saying managers don't think like that.
That's the problem. Sometimes a manager's talking to you about talent and they don't sell tickets. They don't drive subscriptions. And that's a major problem.
So what risk do you take? Do you take a risk and say, I don't know if I'm no matter what got to pay this guy $10 million, whether I sell a single pay-per-view, if I sell $2 million, do we want to take this risk? And how do you make that decision?
On timing, position in the marketplace, position with your new broadcaster, so many different things. The way you're feeling that day, the punt that you want to take, the position your business is in the industry. I mean, so many different things. Most of the time, we will make decisions without emotion. That's key, based on the reality of the numbers. My dad's a chartered accountant, one of the youngest ever qualified. Yeah. And he has drummed into me since day one. Numbers. He was
a snookers guy. He was
snooker. Created all the the major.
Wasn't he like the chairman of the board till like 2010 or something like that? He was the.
But I think I don't know. I'm sure you've seen the McMan Show on Netflix. I mean, he made me feel very normal. But again, you talk about that winning mentality. Yeah. I mean, dangerous at that level because it becomes. Winning's always everything to me. But
what is the biggest losing fight for you business-wise? Where you walked away and said, shit, we lost millions on this one.
So it was Anthony Joshua had just lost at Madison Square Garden to Andy Ruiz. It was a huge upset. Like we had the number one fighter in the world.
I remember that.
Jarrell Miller failed drug tests 3 weeks before the fight. We didn't have an opponent. We wanted a real fight because we were sold out. Ruiz was this fat guy, but he was a very good fighter. And we went with Ruiz, and AJ wasn't right anyway. Anyway, he gets stopped at Madison Square Garden, and I'm like, fuck. And it's like, now, Matchroom, Hearn's in trouble. Matchroom, what are they going to do without AJ? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, right, we need to bounce back. And the team are like, well, what do you mean? I said, Lomachenko, right? One of the great fighters at the time.
When I say lose, I mean money.
That's
you lost money
about.
on that?
Yeah, no. I'm talking about what's coming now. I said, bring Lomachenko to London. We've got a lightweight called Luke Campbell. Lomachenko is one of the greatest fighters. He's never fought in the UK. We'll sell out the O2, do massive pay-per-view numbers, get the deal from Aram, tell me how much I got to pay him. And they offered us a deal to bring Campbell to America, and we would have made $1 million by taking him to America. I went, fuck that. We do it in London because we're going to bounce back after AJ. Anyway, we sold out, but the pay-per-view flopped. So we probably lost $1 million there as well, but also the swing of taking him to America. And it was just, that was one of my big blessings, because it was like, just don't ever make decisions based off emotion again. Do you know what I mean? Calm. You know, and then that's what experience brings over time. And, you know, my dad's actually always takes the mickey out of me for that show, you know. And so does my CEO as well, and a few others. Do you remember when you decided to bring Lomachenko to the UK? And he's an amazing fighter. But that was just like, yeah.
Why do you think it didn't sell? How did it not convert?
Because you have to understand the business. There's a big difference between the hardcore fight fan and the casual audience. And the guys that can interact and sell in the casual sports fan market are the guys that drive the huge pay-per-views. Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, Floyd Mayweather. He captivates. Lomachenko is a hero of the hardcore boxing fanatics, but that's a tiny, tiny percentage of the ecosystem.
So, question for you. When I hear what some people say about you, you know, Frank Warren, Eddie talks a good game, but he doesn't always deliver. He's more interested in being a celebrity than a promoter. Simon Jordan, Eddie Hearn is more about self-promotion than the sport, and so he's turning it into a circus, right? Bob Arum, Eddie is a young guy who thinks he knows everything. He's got a lot to learn about the business. And then a lot of guys say he's all about entertainment. He's all about entertainment, all the stuff that they say, right? How much of it today, like our media company's name is Valuetainment. On election night, we're going up against ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, everybody. We had more people watch our podcast on election night than anybody else worldwide. Everybody was blown away by it. They're like, why would people watch this year? This is the data that came out, showing up the report. And we looked at this. Rob texts me and says, Pat, look where we're ranking. This is that night, okay? We had us ahead of everybody, right? And by the way, we're a bunch of amateurs. I'm not in this space. It's not like we do this for a living, and it's a podcast. We've only been doing this for 4 years. We had 283,000 people concurrent watching the podcast all night with us. Now, here's what the difference was. We had 2,000 people in a hangar, new property that we bought. Next time you come here, we'll do the podcast at the other property right by the airport. We had entertainment. We had all these shows, and we're talking about a serious issue, which is what? Politics. How much you think, you know, ticket sales, selling it, is about the showman, the storytelling, the entertainment versus the matchup? What percentage, if you were to say, look, man, if I can get the controversy behind it, the story behind it, the this, the that, like, you know, the movie, what is it, Warrior, when you got Tom Hardy in it, he's like, man, I don't know if you watch this movie. I watched this movie so many times. You're like, and the final story has it's the two brothers facing each other, father, da-da-da-da-da, Nick Nolte, that scene in the hotel room where Tom Hardy shows up, just can't stand his dad, but he's drunk and he's hanging on to him, and you see the fight, breaks his arm, and the fight's such an emotional movie, but there's a story behind it, right? How much of it is entertainment, story, versus the actual matchup of the fighters?
Virtually all of it. I mean,
virtually all of it.
Because what I said about that hardcore fight, you make a great fight. This small audience, hardcore fight fans, they're the loudest, by the way, as well. They're all in.
5%? Is that 5%?
About that.
Okay.
This is the casual one.
Oh, my God, that's big.
What I am, you talked earlier about, the reason I said take me away from the equation is because that's what the team do. What I do is, I'm a storyteller. I build the narrative. I make you buy in to the story. And
be the viewer.
Yeah. And one of the reasons all those people say the things about me is about 10 years ago, I looked at the UFC business, I looked at WWE, and I thought, what have they got in common? Dana White and Vince McMahon. Mm-hmm. That's the voice. That's the figurehead. That's the guy in the sport. When I say to you UFC, what do you say to me? Dana White. When I say to you WWE, what do you say? You say Vince McMahon. So why can't I build my own brand and my own personality and character within boxing that you're not always talent-led? And the great things about those businesses, WWE or TKO now and, UFC, same part of the same group, the brand and Dana is so strong that when they go into new markets, there's already the profile, there's already the brand recognition, there's already the respect from the customer. And that's what we did. We're the only global promotional company in the world for boxing in multiple markets. And every time I go to a new country, they know who I am. Now, they want to know who's fighting. But me being there and boxing being there and Matchroom being there is enough to penetrate that market. And that's why UFC and WWE have been so successful. So back to your question, that's what I am. I'm a salesman. I've been a salesman since I was 14 years of age. It's my greatest asset. It may be one of my very few talents. I love it. But that's what I do. I get up there. I'm the only promoter in the world that runs their own press conferences. I don't have members of the media introducing me to say a few words. I run the whole fucking thing. It's my show. I'm the greatest showman. That's what our show's called on Netflix coming up. That's my job. I never have any notes. Every promoter will go up there, you see them with their piece of paper. We just want to say this Saturday at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, we've got 8 fights. Fuck that. I've never had one note in my 20 years of promoting boxing. I go up there, most of the time I don't even know what I'm going to say. I've got 16 fighters sitting up here, from 4-round fights to world championship fights. I'll turn up, I'll do my interviews, and the live feed, the floor manager will go, we're going live in 3, 2, 1. I have absolutely no idea what I'm about to say. And I'll tell you the entire card, the entire fighters, their entire records, their entire stories, all within one 45-minute show. And that's because I live and breathe it every single day. And I'm the only promoter in the world that does that. The last promoter that did that was Don King. Probably one of the greatest promoters of all time. Not in terms of his ethics, but in terms of the ability to know there was a show in town. Don King would make you know. That guy would go around with a megaphone on the streets of New York, screaming and shouting. And that's what it is. It's a dying breed of promoter.
Let me ask you. So, Pops, 10 rules for life. Number 10, when you need number 9, avoid being a secret. If you're good, then admit it. If you're great, then shout it from the rooftops. You just presented yourself as extremely confident that not just you're great. I mean, do you see yourself as a better promoter than any of these guys minus Don? You think it's you and Don?
On a different level.
You think you're on a different level?
Different level. Because they can't do...
Bob Arum.
Bob Arum's 93 years old. The thing that Bob will have me on right now as we sit here and talk is longevity. I know you've got to respect the hustle. He's 93 years old. You know, people keep saying to me, how much longer do you want to do this? You know, you're on the road, you're doing this. I say, well, I fucking love it. What, you know, if I stopped doing this, I'd be miserable probably. But I don't know whether that's 50, 60, 70. Bob's 93. Mm-hmm. Are you mad? But Bob did Thriller in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle. I mean, you know, I can't, in terms of legacy, I can't yet compete with Bob Arum because that comes over time. But what I can do is, in terms of ability, in terms of selling, in terms of promoting, in terms of engaging the audience and spinning a narrative, you know, and I don't care to say I'm the greatest promoter of all time because that's what I truly believe. And life is about confidence as well. What do you want me to do? Wake up and go, I'm average? You know, oh no, I'm okay, but I'm not as good as that guy. No, I'm better than you all. And I'll show it now in this press conference. Fucking turn the mics on and go live. You know? And that when you live and you breathe it, you have the confidence to be able to do that kind of stuff. I can talk any time about any fighter, any situation. And of course, the bigger you get and the bigger your business gets, the less fear you have anyway. So you end up just being completely honest because you don't give a fuck. You know, I care about the business. I care, but really, I don't care what people think. I don't care what people say. I want to create storylines. I want to create narrative. I don't want to be a clown. You know, we're running a hugely successful company, but you've got to be talking about us. You know, the reason people want to watch your show is because you're creating narrative. You're creating opinions. You're interacting with the audience. That's the difference. You know, you look down that list that you just presented and you've got NBC at what, I don't know, 30th, you know, a major broadcaster that's institutionalized in the world of elections and politics, and you've got 3 times the viewership on a feed. You know, that's where the world's changed completely. I want to interact. And I was one of the first promoters of that generation to do that on social media. And I was not lucky, but my timing was good because Aaron wasn't going to get out on Twitter and start interacting with fight fans. Frank Warren was, you know, didn't know what the app was, you know?
But by the way, you just brought me to 2 questions here, but I'll go to the first one first. Don King, when you look at him, what made him special? Have you guys had interaction together?
Yeah, I don't like the way Don King does business. There's been a lot said over the years, but he was a pure promoter. I still watch him now. He's 93. He's the same age as Bob Arum.
You know, he lives down the street from me, yeah.
And Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
And like, he's not like still promoting. He does a few shows. But even when he switches it on, I watched an interview with him the other day. I mean, his health's not in an amazing place, but I just watched an interview with him the other day because it's 50 years since the Rumble in the Jungle. And he's trying to sell a show to Saudi Arabia to do a 50-year anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle. And I'm actually listening to him going, fuck it, I'd do it. You know, and I'm thinking, he's unbelievable. You know, and I'm thinking, he comes on at first, and I'm thinking, oh, here he goes. Here's Don King. What's he going to say now? And then at the end of it, I'm looking at it going, you know what? Turkey Al Sheikh, who's our guy in Saudi, I think he'll probably do it. He'll probably do it. And it's, you know, he's another guy. He's a massive legacy.
What is it though? Is it charm? Is it charisma? Is it a little bit off? Is it temper?
Waldorf
is it competitive?
said,
is it storytelling?
Sales is a transfer of emotion, right? And that's exactly the same when you're selling a fight. It doesn't matter. If I'm selling you a photocopier and I believe in the photocopier, right? It's got the best filtration system. That paper moves so smoothly to the top and the ink never runs out. And when it does, it tells you on the LED screen. Yeah. If I've got a piece of shit photocopier that gets jammed all the time and I know that the ink don't run smooth, I can't deliver the same emotion. That's why the product is always important. You can bluff and you can be a great salesman, but the reality is the emotion that you have in that pitch is actually dependent upon the product that you're representing and the concept that you have. And that, you know, I know, the reason I know that is because if I'm doing an average show, I'll do a press conference. You may not see the difference, but I'll feel the difference. You know, when I've got a huge show, that week, I'm just on fire. I sit down at the press conference, I'm blowing off here. And you know the tough sells. You know when you've gone to pitch someone, you're like, fuck. You know, and sometimes you get it through. Sometimes you sell out the arena. Sometimes you do a great, but you think, oh, God. And someone says, wow, how did he do that? That's great promotion. You go, yeah, we got away with that one. But then you got the great product, the great shows. They're the home runs for me. That's the easy work. But actually, the harder work is the tougher sell. And that's more of a challenge.
What do you think makes it? What's Dana's gift and what's Vince's gift, in your opinion?
No fear.
Dana's.
Yeah, no regard for what people think. I'm going to give it to you straight. You know, incredibly hardworking. I mean, I don't know Vince. I know Dana quite well. He's always been extremely good to me, very hospitable. Vince, from only what I saw in the Netflix, is a lunatic. But you look at him up again. I mean, he basically said, I'm going to be the guy. I'm the fucking star of the show. And I'm not letting the others win. AEW or whatever, when they started out, and the thing with Vince, unfortunately, probably led to his demise is whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, we're going to win.
One of the stories where he's like, his daughter's like, nah, I don't want to tell the story. He said, what's the craziest idea your dad ever came up with? He said, I don't want to tell the story. And he told the story. Remember that?
Impregnate his daughter. I mean, this is where it just goes to another level. And it's like, that documentary, I sat there with my jaw open most of the documentary.
I couldn't stop watching it.
Unfortunately, and, rest his soul. When the wrestler died.
Yeah, Owen Hart.
And they carried on the show.
Yeah.
And they're telling the story about what happened. And he just said, and I had to make the decision. The show must go on. And I went, what? And he said, I would have wanted the show to go on if it was me.
Do you believe him?
I just think, I mean, I was trying to think about myself being in that situation in a live event when that happens at the show. I mean, you know how many people he would have overruled for that, to keep that show on? Like, because I know my people would be saying to me, Eddie, you have to cancel this show now. You know, but I couldn't believe, you know.
How'd you rank that documentary?
Unbelievable.
I couldn't stop.
Unbelievable.
Two people texted me, Matt and Sheena Sapala, and another Steve Avetian's like, you guys got to watch. I'm like, listen, I don't have time to sit there and watch a 6-part. Pat, just start the first one and then make the decision afterwards. Netflix allows you to watch 1.5. I can watch stuff at 3.0 because I like Spotify, but I watch it at 1.5. I put the kids down. It's Friday night, Saturday night, 10 o'clock. Everyone's asleep. I go downstairs in my office. I watch first episode. I'm like, dude, I got to watch the second one. I watch the second one. I'm like, give me I watch the third one. I get up on Sunday, 6 o'clock while I go downstairs in my office. What's Daddy doing over there? Watch the next one.
Gets better and better. And
I could not believe how sick this was. The way he did what he did, and then the story with his kids and what happened.
But don't you think that is all the signs of power? Not necessarily greed, but like, and it wasn't even really money, was it? It was just power and control. And I think that's a great lesson of, like, I actually think that sometimes people think that the more, I mean, I think success is a great word to debate anyway, but people think that the more successful you are, or better, the more successful your business is, and the bigger you become and the wealthier you'll become, actually life becomes easier and easier. Whereas, you know, his life kind of spiraled out a little bit of control because of that pure want for winning. And that's why, you know, when we talked earlier about my childhood, that's actually something that I think you have to be careful of in life, because at what point do you look back? Because all it is win, 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 win.
You know what? If you think about the let's just say you, Vince, some of these guys, Dana, some of the guys we're talking about, the common thread is a very, very, very strong personality father.
Yeah.
Think about that. Where it's like, you're going to do this? Watch what I'm going to be doing. Watch what I do. Let me show you, you mother. You think you're the driver? Watch what you're going to see what, and it's almost like a little bit of psychotic edge that comes from that, right?
It is, yeah.
I'm going to go show the world. And by the way, it doesn't happen with everybody. It's normally one of the kids, because to really go there, you have to be really going to a dark place to be willing to go through that pain. If it doesn't matter to you, and then if you don't have control over your imagination, you can really go to a bad place and you can kind of, you know, have a different kind of relationship with your dad. You don't want to do that. But if you're able to come back, by the way, transitioning, Bob Arum, was it Bob Arum that said this about you? Let me read this to you. Very interesting. In a way, I see it as a compliment. Yeah, he said this about you. He said, you know, the problem with Trump is he talks too much. It's almost like Eddie Hearn is the president of the United States. That's another guy that talks too much, right? When you hear him saying something like that about you, do you take that as a compliment?
I guess so. I mean, I'm, again, like, sometimes I border on the line of delusion about my own ability on things.
You?
Yeah, because I think I can do everything. Like,
are you aware or you're not aware when you're in it?
I'm aware, but I'm also like, you know, I've wound up the American promoters for many years, because in the UK, sarcasm is seen as the greatest form of humor. It actually gets lost a lot in America. So I've done things where I've, you know, like, there's this guy called Leonard Ellaby, he works for Floyd Mayweather, and he's like, and I drive him mad. Like, when he talks about me, he's frothing at the mouth, and I'm like loving it. And I said, as a throwaway line once, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that I see myself actually going into acting, right? Which I actually probably do, right? But again, just like delusion, right? I'd say it to my friends and they'd go, shut up, you know. And I said to him, I said, this is an interview, not to him. I said, I wouldn't even be surprised. They're auditioning for the new James Bond at the moment. Why not? Yeah. Well, he's come out and he's like, did you see Hearn the other day? I mean, he's talking about being a new James Bond. I mean, what the fuck is this guy up like? And I'm watching him going, you're so angry. Wow, it was actually a throwaway line. And then I started thinking to myself, do you know what? I could probably do that, right? And see with Aaron, and then recently I started talking in the UK about running for Prime Minister, right? And I'm like, because my audience is the people, right? We do 10 different sports at Matchroom, and they're all working class sport where the man on the street follows and watches, right? So I'm quite well known within that place. And I was like, and we've got big problems in the UK at the moment, big problems. And I just came out and I was like, look, fuck it, make me the next Prime Minister. And I was talking about some of, not necessarily the policies, but the problems in the country. And it's like, before you know it, like actually there's like this swell of support across social media. And it's like, do you know what? I'd vote for it. We could do worse, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I said to my dad, you know what, Dad, I think I could do this. And he's like, I said, all right, well, if I ran for MP, right, Member of the Parliament, for Brentwood, which is where we're from, do you think I'd win? And he went, hands down. Like everyone knows me in the area. Like, our family we've lived there our whole lives. Like I would 100% win. It's not a state.
What is that comparable to here?
Not a state, but but it's a,
Is it a county? Would it be considered a county?
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's a county of Essex, but I could pretty much win any seat within the county, which is like a state for you guys, right? Because especially how the country is at the moment and the need to do something and to advocate for change. But I'm just sort of messing around. And then you start thinking to yourself, but when you say like that psychotic edge, there probably is a little bit of that, because I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not cracked boxing, but I'm, we're really on the way. What's next? Do you know what I mean? And he's saying to me, do you, with all the aggravation in your life, could you think of anything worse than being Prime Minister of this country? And it's like, he goes, and stop, just, and I'm like, yeah, I'm only joking anyway. And I'm kind of sitting there going,
Are you though?
No, but I mean, I am. I don't think I'm bright enough to be Prime Minister. But then you look at what's happening around the world, and then you just think really, and we go back to like your show and the numbers and that kind of stuff. Actually, it's not necessarily about that. I mean, you go, last week, I was talking at Wharton Business School. We had a show in Philadelphia, and I'm talking to all these incredible business graduates, and I'm thinking like, you just, some people you speak to and you go, and then a lot of that world is just like, who's going to grab it by the horns and go and make it different? And that's why I think people look at Trump and say, I don't necessarily like the guy, but I think he's going to get things done. So yeah, I don't think you're going to see me running for Prime Minister, but I like challenges, and I'm 45 years of age. I don't know, what's next?
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book, where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards, is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape, and he gets recruited to a secret society. When you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time, and they test you. There's unique tests that they have at the society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it, because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories, Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review.
You made a comment on a 14-year-old kid, Daniel, that got with a samurai sword, right? That got stabbed and died by a 36-year-old, and all the stabbing that's going on over there.
I mean, we had recently, I think there was 3 or 4 people that passed away. It was a Taylor Swift dance class, and a lunatic goes in and kills, I think, 3 or 4 young girls. You're talking 7, 8, 9 years of age. I think 6 other people with a knife, right? And one of the problems right now, and this is a global thing, by the way, this is not a UK thing, we have become so desensitized to things, haven't we? Because that thing happened, a week later, it's forgotten. I mean, look at your country, where people will go into schools, and you will see mass shootings. And it's like, I mean, I don't live here full time, but I don't get the feeling that this is like something that's mourned within the community for years and years and years. It's like, oh, there was another one over there. And that's what it's become in the UK. Oh, there was a mass stabbing today. 3 people died. Oh, 1 died. Someone got stabbed in Brentwood up the road to me. I'm like, what the there is absolutely no regard or respect for.
How did UK get there? You've been there? I mean, this is your life. How did
just a mixture of things. I think generally, I had this argument the other day with this sort of charity that do a great job of. I said that what we need to do is we need to impose immediate sanctions and time in prison for people carrying weapons. If you're caught carrying a weapon on the street in a stop and search, you do 5 years or you do 10 years. And then we don't have any room in our prisons. So they're releasing people early right now in the prison, Keir Starmer. And then at the same time, the problem is coming through the system. Young people who don't have a role model at home, that don't have a family structure, are moving into, gangs and bad. And we do a huge amount through the Matchroom Sport Charity Foundation for sport within the community. I'm telling you, Patrick, like you may not have been around boxing. You enter a boxing club as a young kid, it will change your life forever. All of the things that are lacking in society today with the younger generation, discipline, respect, manners, physical health, mental health, lack of barriers, winning, losing, teamwork, role models through the coaches. You get all of that when you go through a boxing club. And our government are closing down these clubs in the community because they're running out of money. So the kids that the 60, 70 kids from the estate, who used to go boxing every night, are just now sitting around on the stairs. Next thing, they're running parcels here. They're selling drugs here. They're getting involved. They're carrying weapons, because I mean, how old are your kids?
3, 8, 11, 12.
Like I sometimes, I have 2 daughters, right? Sometimes I listen to how they speak to me, and they're good kids. Do you know what I mean? But I'm like, if I spoke to my dad like that growing up, he would have given me a beating. Like kids these days, they just don't have the respect. Even if they're good kids with good hearts, it's just, things are changing. They're mesmerized by devices. They've lost all kind of social interaction, one-on-one social interaction. And I see it because I'm a parent as well. Come off that. All right, okay, all right. No, put it down. Do you know what I mean? Talk to me, and that's a dangerous world because they just become sort of engrossed in this web of algorithm,
Yeah, I'm looking at this here, Rob. This is what police's British teen accused of fatally stabbing 3 girls, also made poison and had a terror manual. What's a terror?
So this came out. So
this is just a few days ago, by the way.
Yeah, well, we do have an immigration issue in the country,
right?
Which there is massive kind of almost like civil unrest about right now. And what happened was, what they do is when this happened, they don't like to release the name or the kind of background of the killer, right? Because they don't want civil unrest. Now, when they went through the full court hearing, they actually found out that this guy who killed the children had an Al-Qaeda manual and poison, I believe explosives as well, actually, found in his house.
What does it mean, an Al-Qaeda manual?
Like a...
Go a little lower, Rob. What? So Axel, the 18-year-old accused of
basically for terrorist activities,
was charged with possessing terrorism-related material, producing a toxin after an Al-Qaeda training manual, and highly toxic poison were found in his home. The stabbing in Southport, town of UK's Wisconsin, ignited far-right riots across the country after a storm of misinformation emerged online that it's a newly arrived immigrant to the country, and now some British lawmakers have launched fresh accusations of government cover-up. Is already charged with 3 murders of B.B. King, 6,
7, and 9.
Are you kidding me? And the way the article is written, right-wing. Why isn't it saying left-wing and right-wing? Who cares what wing it is if they're criticizing? Go a little lower, Rob. So on Tuesday, police said that 2 recent discoveries of homers and banks and 6 miles prompted them to slap on new charges. Toxin found in a carbines and a PDF file of military studies and jihad against tyrants, the Al-Qaeda's training manual. Wow.
And it was like they didn't want this information to come out.
Why didn't they?
Because they knew, we talked about, there were riots recently in the country, and they felt that it would escalate the riots.
I saw this fella, this guy, Tommy Robinson, did something. Yeah. I don't know if you know who he is, Tommy. He I think Pierce had him on. Did an interview with him. Tommy Robinson talked about what's going on there. Did Tommy go away, by the way?
I believe so, yeah. I think
can you see if Tommy went to jail, Rob? Just go to Tommy arrested, jail. There you go. It's fine, either one of them.
Jailed for 18 months.
For what? For that documentary? What's he jailed for? Jail for 18 months after he admitted to being Peter Falls. She said whose real name is this? Men on Monday, Virgin Kate Wilton Robinson, the founder of... Yeah, he made a documentary that got, 80 million views and showed some of the chaos that was going on in this place. It's wild. I lived in Iran for almost 11 years. And part of it, we left. A Christian family was kind of tough. You going to school, your parents are telling you, don't tell anybody where, we lean politically or what religion is. Just tell them, talk to mommy and daddy. I don't know. Talk to mommy and daddy. I don't know. And then I lived in Germany for a year and a half at a refugee camp. And then we came here. Man, it's a wild place, your country. Would you ever leave it? Are you at a point that you don't feel safe raising your 2 kids?
There was just we've got a new government. We have a Labour government in now that are kind of historic in terms of taxing, raising the taxes. And I always say that, we're a huge contributor of tax in the UK. I have no problem with that at all. But when my children aren't safe to walk the streets, it makes you just think about, your financial commitment to the country, and actually, more importantly, the safety of your children. Do you want them to grow up there? They raise the taxes not as harshly as what was anticipated in the last budget, but at the same time, it's not even really about the money. It's just, is it a place that you want to live in? There are plenty of places around the world that are much, much safer. But you also want your child to have a normal life, to grow up in that normal school. 15 and 12.
And you're married?
Yeah.
Is your wife from there? Is she American or is she
UK? But
she's UK.
The kids, for me, the kids are like, it's so difficult because you can take them to this nice place and this nice school and like an international business school and stuff like this, and it's like, do you want them to live that life? Do you want them? Do you know what I mean? It's like, because I know what
the toughness.
Yeah, like my dad would never have wanted me to go down that route, and like because I don't think I would have been the same person.
How many siblings? How many total?
One sister I have.
Did he treat her the same as you?
Not really. He defines me as his project. I was like, thanks, Dad. It's really, really nice of you.
And he's a project manager. It's my project. His name,
great,
we can see what we can do with him.
Yeah, but he always wanted to build me as the guy to take the business over. Whereas I think, especially the older generation, they are a bit different with their daughters. Like he says, I don't have a son. So he's like, it's a shame, you got no one to take over the business. It's like, well, my daughters could do it. Oh, really? Oh, right. Okay.
So he's 76. Did he grow up in a rough neighborhood coming up?
Yeah, pretty rough. Yeah, so, East London. His dad was a bus driver. His mum cleaned houses for.
Was he around with the craze and all that stuff?
Not really. I mean, knew about those guys. I mean, he used to put fruit machines and gambling machines in nightclubs that they ran and stuff like that.
But. You see, sometimes like you wonder, in New York, the crime where New York's at right now. Don't get me wrong, the mob did what the mob did. But, if there was an element of you didn't screw around and these guys would show up and they took care of their own. But if you crossed the line, did anything to their community and their kids, they were not good people to be messing around with, right? So sometimes you wonder, like, the level of safety and how they're – by the way, which is more crosses your mind? You and your wife are in bed. You're sitting there talking to each other late at night, 11 o'clock, and you're like, babe – do we leave the States or do I run for office?
Yeah, I wouldn't have that conversation, but I think it's more like...
You said you wouldn't have that
I just, like, my thing is with my children, I just want them to have a passion for something, and I know that if I turn around to my kids now and said, do you want to go and live in Dubai? Or do you want to go, no, I've got my friends at school, So, but sometimes you've got to make a decision for their future. And I think it's not just really my kids necessarily. I just look at the country and I look at the kids, and that's why we love doing work in the community with local boxing clubs. Because when I see the kids doing normal things, working hard, listening, sometimes being told off, doing their work, that's what's missing in society today. I think we've got a major problem. Like, that's worldwide, but I'm, speaking about my country specifically.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what's going to happen there? I think, what is needed for that to change? I had a guy from Poland, Dominik Tarczynski. I don't know if you know who he is. He's part of the parliament 2 times with Poland. Now he's part of the EU parliament. Tough guy. We had him on the podcast, the election night. He's he was the star of the night. Mm-hmm. When they say star was born, this guy, you turn on the camera, he lights up. He lights up when the camera's on. And he says, do you know Poland's got the lowest percentage of rape, lowest percentage of unemployment, lowest, their borders. If you cross the border, they have the right to kill you. No questions asked. If you do anything at the border, it's not, well, let me find out. Nope, they have the lowest percentage of the Muslim population. They have certain things that he brags about. He says, we will not have one here, not one here. You can go elsewhere. Very much controversial guy, right? And he sits there and he talks about what's going on with UK in some of the places. He said, look at these guys. They're ruining a great country because they just want to make sure everybody's happy. So I don't know what's going to happen to UK. UK is UK. When you think about, like, the financial capital of the world for the longest time before it was New York, you guys had it. And you had it for a long time. So I don't know. I'm wondering if we're going to get an announcement today that you're running for office. You're going to do something about that.
Not
place.
just
so
yet. Not just yet.
We're going to bring it. So let's transition to the next story. This is a question I was going to ask you earlier when you talked about Bob Arum is not on Twitter. So out of all the social media platforms, like I'm with Dana, and Dana says, Pat, let me tell you about Super Slap. Watch this. I watched the clip, 40 million views. I'm like, you got to be kidding. I got to buy this. And he says, you got to come to a Super Slap event. So I go to the event, and I'm seeing a guy passes out, gets slapped in the face, is on the ground. Audience is going crazy. My wife is sitting there saying, babe, what is this? I said, babe, whatever this is, that guy right there is promoting it. This is going to make a lot of money because that guy's behind it. And, he went to TikTok. He went to Instagram, right? Out of all the social media platforms today, if you were to rank them, which one is positively influencing boxing the most?
Great question. Twitter.
Really?
Yeah. I would say Twitter is without question the most toxic environment I've ever seen in my life. I think
that's good for boxing.
Yeah, basically. And that's exactly that.
Yeah.
There are more opinions. There are more controversies. I mean, you read.
Really?
If I read Twitter in a day, 90% of what I read is about boxing. Is complete rubbish, right? But it's like full of boxing geniuses, and like that ecosystem of algorithms are just flying out everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like someone can make anything up. Next thing, 100,000 retweets, or 100,000 views, 400 retweets, this, that. Like Instagram for me, good for building a fighter's profile, but difficult to actually build the narrative of conversation in the same way. TikTok, yeah, there is investment going in behind. YouTube has been a very powerful platform for us to spin the narrative of mainly shoulder programming and content to build around the event. But Twitter's the cesspit. Twitter's the cesspit of knowledge or supposed knowledge of fans. And that's why like a lot of our guys, a lot of the guys that I've come off Twitter, I've deleted the app. I'm like, I'd love to, but it's just too important to us.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder in the fighting world which one it is.
It's Twitter.
On YouTube, which one of the sports channels has the most subscribers? It's wrestling.
Mm.
And Rob, if you can pull up YouTube, go to YouTube, put WWE. I'm trying to see how many subscribers. Look at that, 105 million. Go to their videos, Rob, and go to the most viewed. Just go to videos and it's all for popular. Well, how many views is it? Holy shit, 300. And then go to UFC, Rob. Let's see what UFC's at. So WWE is at 100 plus. UFC is, I think they're up there. I don't know what their number is. Wow, look at that, 19.1 million. 19.1 comparison.
Yeah.
On what is
a huge amount?
Still huge. Yeah. But does boxing have? Type in boxing. See if boxing.
I think ours would sit at about 600, 700,000. Matchroom Boxing YouTube, and we're one of the biggest. Top Rank probably have 1 million, 1.5 million. The DAZN are very good on social.
How many is that, Rob? 4.46 million.
Yeah, that's a lot for boxing.
Yeah, I guess it's easier if it's all centralized, going through one thing, which is UFC and WWE, versus it's all fragmented all over the place.
But also, the key to driving those huge numbers is those powerful moments. So, that's why the slap does very well in terms of its viral numbers, because it's incredibly shocking. Do you know what I mean? So when you see someone who, slaps someone in the face, their eyes roll in the back of their head and they're unconscious, falling backwards, people are like, share.
No, I mean, that's the thing. When I see it, I'm like, dude, holy shit. First time I saw it, I'm like, what is this? Is this actually? I saw something the other day. They said this could be the next thing. It's 4 guys hanging off a pull-up bar. Have you seen this one or no?
You got to hang on?
It's 4 guys. They're hanging off a pull-up bar, okay? And it says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They're kicking each other in the face to see who falls, whoever's last. By the way, not going to lie to you, it was so entertaining watching this. And I'm sitting there saying, you know what? This could actually be something, because if the slapping thing goes, who knows what it'll take up. But let me get into a couple other questions here and then we'll wrap up. Ryan Garcia, I had him on a couple times. He had his fight with Devin Haney. Good fight. When you watched the fight, were you saying something's going on, he looks different, or were you like, hey, he won the fight? What was your reaction?
No, I was representing Devin that night. I've never seen, I've known Ryan for a few years, and his behavior going into that fight just changed so drastically to the point of, 8 weeks out from the fight, the first press conference, I was talking to him, and I just turned to our guys. I went, what has happened to Ryan? He was just flying, and the whole build-up, everything, his behavior was just in my opinion, it was all the signs of someone who was having really a breakdown, to be quite honest with you, in some respect or some form. Fast forward to the fight, the weigh-in comes, he's overweight, he doesn't make the official weight, the contracted weight, had to cut a new deal for the fight. Then the fight happens, he won the fight, great performance, looked much bigger than Devin in the ring. Devin was very brave, but lost on points. And then a couple of weeks later, he fails his test from VADA, the drugs test, on the Friday and the Saturday of the fight. Then all of a sudden, everything changes. The guy has won but he has performance-enhancing drugs in his system during the fight. That's unequivocal. That's, impossible to say he didn't. Then it sort of skirts back to how did it get there, right? Every fighter would say, no, I didn't do anything. It's a tainted supplement. It's this, which can happen as well. Normally when a fighter fails a drugs test so close to the fight, because these guys were tested 8 weeks, like all the time, and he hadn't failed a test. Normally it would be something that someone's given him or he's taken to try and cut the weight for the weigh-in. That's my probably prediction, rather than him actually cheating intentionally for the fight. I think probably someone gave him something to cut weight and make weight because he couldn't make weight. I don't know. But what we do know is when he fought Devin Haney, he had performance-enhancing drugs in his system.
When you say that to the average person, and let me tell you how that comes across to me, and that's what I'm wondering. It's interesting you're saying this. The average fan who doesn't follow this, not the 5% of the community that's the super fan, the 95%, the average fan sits there and says, oh, this guy was on steroids and growth hormone. But no, that's not the case based on what you're saying. This could have been the fact. If you guys are 8 weeks out of your constantly testing, the idea of getting on growth hormone or steroids, it's not going to do anything for you if it's a week out or 2 weeks out. That's really a 12-week build out, and it's something like that, right?
The reality is no one really knows. Some will say, well, it's a masking, agent for something that he was doing. The reality is no one will ever know. Ryan's argument with, it was such a small amount that it had no physical benefit. And it's like, maybe that's the case, but it was still in your system.
So then let me ask you, would there be like the Houston Astros, I don't know if you follow baseball, Houston Astros won the World Series the 5 years ago, whatever the timeline was. And then stories comes out, when the guy hits the home run, he's like, guys, don't do anything because he's got stuff in his chest. It's like he didn't want to show wiring. They're like, these guys cheated. They got caught cheating. And Rob Manfred let them keep the World Series championship. Aaron Judge was pissed. The Dodgers, a bunch of people were pissed because they cheated. But then they came back and they won. What year? 2017 or something broken. So they won in 2017, 2018. What year did they win the World Series? 2017. Everyone's talking shit about these guys, right? Then they come back. And a few years later, Rob, if you can pull up, when the next time the Houston Astros won the World Series, I think they won 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 2022. So these guys said, a couple guys left, but the main guys were there. One of the main guys was there, and they win again 5 years later. And it was the middle finger to everybody in baseball to say, to all of you guys who said we cheated, F you. We'll still beat you. And you can check whatever you want, right? Everybody's like, hey, you can't say shit about these guys. Now they won. So in this case, let's say that is the case. Okay. What if you guys go back and negotiate and double down on the, I think the world would want to see.
The rematch is huge.
Yeah.
And I think it will happen. I mean, there's a lot of bad blood.
Right.
Devin
Even
and his father
dad,
feels like,
Yeah.
you come in overweight, you had that in your system, and that's a dangerous sport. Like if Ryan was intentionally cheating, like now you have this case that's running out. Have you seen it?
Now you're going criminal. Yeah.
Which is actually really interesting. Like, contractually, obviously he's breached, but, the argument, I guess, of the case is that he's physically harmed the opponent by breaching the agreement.
Has he gotten paid already or not yet? The fighter's gone paid?
Yeah, they got paid, yeah.
They got paid.
But now he's suing Ryan Garcia, and it's actually quite an interesting case because it may really diffuse. I think one of the problems is Ryan got a year's ban, right? So actually, time you finished the fight, had your holiday, like you probably wouldn't fight for 6 months anyway. So it's really a 6-month ban. So how are you going to really, make a fighter fearful of the consequences of testing positive?
How do you do that?
Well, maybe this case. A lot of people have said that in the past about you have a case against the fighter.
Has it ever happened? Do you remember that one guy that, at the end of the fight, the dad's like, dude, this is not normal. And the dad comes and grabs the gloves and he says, hey, Margarita.
He had loads stacked gloves, loaded gloves with like concrete on the wraps.
You're right. What happened to that guy?
I don't think there was anything, there was no criminal case.
He didn't go to jail?
He got banned. No, he got banned.
Permanently banned?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. By the
Permanently banned?
A year to, I don't know
nothing,
the exact.
I mean, to do that, that's nothing. So, okay. So, I'm trying to see the lawsuit. So they have Haney, And Haney on Ryan Garcia. I saw this. I'm just wondering what the lawsuit was and how much it is. I don't know why I think 30 million, but maybe
for battery, fraud, and breach of contract.
Okay, there it is. For battery, fraud, and breach of contract. Have they announced what the amount is, or is it just a general? So. Okay, so it's not. The star was suspended for 1 year and fined upwards of $1.2 million in the fight. And Haney would never have fought a boxer who was positive on PED. Got it. Haney was entitled to 47% of the event's profits. So they're coming back for that. Okay. Now, this is at the end of the fight, Rob, if you want to play the clip, and that's Ryan Garcia's dad. By the way, this was one of the most entertaining. I actually really enjoyed watching this fight. And then afterwards, we see this. I'm sure you obviously know what this is. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob. It's great for TV, by the way.
He was amazing. I thought, well done, well done. Oh, really? Fuck you.
Fuck you. Fuck you. You my son, you piece of shit. What are you talking about? You might, fuck you. You know you're a piece of shit. And that's what you get. Really? Now what are you going to say? I'm going to say, Luke Campbell and fucking Devin Haney, fuck you. Now who you got? Who do you got?
Jerron Ennis.
Who?
Jerron Ennis.
How about Pitbull?
You know he's good. Jerron Ennis is good.
They're all good.
Respect. It's a good performance.
Sorry.
I know you're emotional.
Damn, sorry.
Listen, it's a sport. When you win,
I know,
I'll give you all the respect in the world.
Okay, give Ryan the respect.
I just told him.
You did?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
This is how we work.
Sorry.
Don't worry. I respect you. I accept your apology.
Thank you.
No problem.
I accept your apology.
That was the last line, was the killer, you know.
It took you half a second to respond back, right off the bat, too. But, I mean, look, for me, obviously, they got to do what they got to do with the contract. Some people are like, well, he's doing that because they want to dodge the next fight. Some people are saying he's doing that to hold the guy accountable, Ryan Garcia. Whatever it is, if that's the claim and you put up a challenge for him to get back to the weight that he needs to, maybe double down on the weight to do the testing on them. But if that fight happens.
Big fight, yeah.
It's going to be.
Big fight. It will happen, I believe.
How soon do you think it'll happen?
I mean, look, he's going to be banned till what, May?
It's nothing.
So, you know, Devin needs to fight, really. You know, I said to him the other day, you know, that was a tough defeat physically. You could really do with a comeback fight of some respect, confidence, going through camp, you know, because that was a beating.
You think he needs a fight before he goes with Ryan?
So. I would advise it.
To fight somebody before.
Just because when you get beat like that, like, it's a long time out of the ring. You're talking about over a year out of the ring anyway. And, you know, Ryan's Ryan. I haven't seen. I would guess Ryan. I haven't seen as much from him on social media lately, which is good news. But I think he's probably got a little bit of help, and you know, I think hopefully he's on the right path now because he's a good kid. Actually, he's got a good heart. And then the build up will be wild. You know, I mean, then we talk about narrative. I mean,
are you kidding me? Are you going to be behind that?
But that's what we're because Oscar De La Hoya. You know, me and him are like this.
Yeah. But he said something about you. He responded to you, I think, yesterday.
He wants
what happened with you guys?
So we want to do this 5v5, which is our 5 of our best against 5 of Golden Boy's best in Saudi Arabia. But he came out today and said, I want to fight Eddie on the card.
He's so funny.
And I'm like, you know, and people say to me, you know, like, he beat the shit out of you, don't you? I said, the guy was a pound-for-pound great fighter. He said, well, you wouldn't do it, would you? I said, there's always enough.
There's always enough.
And he came out today. He's quite funny. He came out today on his social media. Oh, here we go. Look. I don't know if you want to play the clip of him. This is him appealing to His Excellency to do the fight in Saudi Arabia.
I will fight Eddie for free as a gift to you. For free. It'll be my pleasure. But look, I only need about 2 months of training.
It actually went on for a while after that. But I was like, you need 2 months of training to fight me? Yeah. So he's like, yeah. I said, look, I'm honoured, right? But he's saying, I'll fight him for free. I said, I won't. I want 8 figures. But I'll do it. And it'll break pay-per-view records. So it's up to you, Your Excellency. And they're like, are you joking? I'm like, but this is what I say about the delusion earlier.
Yeah. So
people are going to me, hey, you wouldn't do that. I go, no, of course I wouldn't do that. And then I'm like, I would do that. Just because.
But is there real animosity towards each other?
He hates me. Oh my God, he hates me. Like, I see Oscar De La Hoya as this I mean, like one of my favourite fighters. He's just like a legend of the sport. But I put his nose out of joint so bad. I signed Canelo Alvarez when Canelo took him to court, and he come to join me. And like for years, he's just, you know, I have this ability to make people's blood pressure rise beyond all kinds of levels. And that's the thing with Oscar, you know.
Yeah.
And actually, I like Oscar. Like we could do a lot of business together, but he's a guy that works off emotion rather than a clear mind to do good business. So
when it happened, what's your story from Canelo and his falling out? Because listen, at one of the fights, Canelo would not stop talking trash.
Yeah, well, that was the high. They hate each other bad. I mean, Oscar doesn't like me, but I don't think it's not like him and Canelo. Like they cannot stand each other. Oscar says, "I built you. You owe me everything," and Canelo says, "I made your company." And then there's a lot of financial disputes and stuff like that. But, you know, Canelo's probably the coolest guy I've ever met. You know, and
coolest guy,
yeah. And one of the straightest guys I've ever met, like 100%. You know, I did about 7 fights for him. And if the business is right for him,
easy.
Done. And if it's not, no problem. Eddie, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Thank you, Sal. See you on the next one. That's it. And as long as you always know where you stand, that's all good, you know. He's a great guy.
So you said the excellency earlier
His
with
excellency,
Turkey,
Ala Sheikh.
How much is he disrupting the game? You know, I don't know who said it that he's the biggest name right now. You know, I think ESPN may have called him the number one
powerful man in boxing.
Yeah, something like that. Influential, powerful man in boxing. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, because they have, you know, obscene budgets and the opportunity to do whatever they want in the space. You know, Riyadh season, which is what he effectively runs, and that schedule of events, it's been in operation for a year now. You know, you've seen Fury and Ngannou Joshua, Fury Usyk, Bivol Beterbiev, the 5v5, us against Frank Warren, a Day of Reckoning card. We did an event for him in Los Angeles, which was incredible. We just did Joshua Dubois at Wembley, 96,000 people. I mean, you know, and what I love about these people, I mean, firstly, talk about great guys. Like, he's one of the funniest people I've ever met. And the funniest. He will take, I mean, if you read his WhatsApps to me, all he does is, like, take the mick out, take the piss out of me all the time. You know, we have a fight or lose, you are shit, Eddie. You need to retire. You know, like, but his energy to get things done, like, you know, the pace that they move at. You do a deal here now, done. Right, you go away, paper it, get it done. Next. Do you know what I mean? And once that's done, it's not, 3 months down the line, we're still going, it's this and that. It's done. You know, and you sit in a room with him and he puts a card together and you're just like, wow.
What part of it is wow?
Just the whole of the fights. Obviously, the cost of the show that he's putting together. But he knows he's boxing. And he's a very passionate man about the sport and very clever. This isn't just a guy who's come in who's got a big budget and doesn't really know what he's doing.
So when you say he's clever, what?
A clear vision for the sport. He understands it commercially. You know, I don't know if you've seen the promos that they put together. Guy Ritchie did the last one. I mean, it's like a mini Oscar-winning film. The promotion, the way they're building, the perception of the sport again, you know, into this huge event. It's been brilliant for the sport. And, you know, you're always going to get people who moan and, you know, why are there events in Saudi? Why not? There are events in Las Vegas. Like, every part of the world.
Who bitches about it? Fighters or
the fans? Sometimes people aren't
fans,
involved. I know, but like,
listen,
you know.
You put up a fight. If it's a fight that the world wants to see, they don't give a shit where it's at. Put it, we'll come to it. Matter of fact, didn't you during COVID put some stuff, like you put some fights in your backyard? Didn't you do so? Well,
so we had about 8 fight shows booked. We pay for the venues, the flights, the hotels, everything. And then COVID hits and the government says, right, all live sports events cancelled. I'm like, what? We've got all our dates with our broadcaster to be fulfilled, right? We've got no arenas you can go to. And this is our office, actually, our head office. This is it's my old house, where I lived there from the age of 4.
Is this the house that your dad bought for $200,000? I read somewhere.
£200,000. Yeah.
£200,000. It's like $20 million.
Yeah. So leading up there's some stairs, right, just by the bottom windows. And I sat on those stairs during COVID and I was like, what the fuck are we going to do? And I looked at the lawn and I was like, we're going to do it here. And they were like, what? And I said, I'm going to create Fight Camp. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad, we're going to build Fight Camp in the garden. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, we're going to have an arena in the garden, and we're going to hire the hotel down the road, which is out of business. We're going to put the bubble in there. We're going to put testing in there. We're going to isolate everyone in the room. And once they've passed their tests, we're going to ferry them up to the hotel and fight here. And we ran this for 4 weeks, right? It was the most unbelievable thing you will ever see. It completely changed.
How many people would be there, by the way?
No one was allowed.
It's just the fight.
Yeah, only the people in the bubble. The next year, it was so big, the event, Fight Camp, I did it again the next year, and I allowed 600 people a night into the garden. We sell tickets. The unique private experience within the garden to watch Fight Camp live. But the reality was, this is what
you're joking. This is the backyard.
This is the ring walk for the backyard. Pyrotechnics, right?
And where are you selling this fight?
All around the world.
Pay-per-view.
Yeah, there was a couple of pay-per-view events within the 4-week period. But don't forget, you're going to the broadcaster and saying, right, I owe you 4 shows, 5 shows within our contract term. I can't deliver them. But I can now, because I've built this fucking arena in my garden, and we're going to do it from
How
my
do they
garden.
feel about it?
They loved it, because there's no live sport. You know, all the other sports just closed down. They went, well, we can't do anything at the moment till...
Are you and Dana talking at that time or not at all?
A little bit. I think it probably got his attention a little bit.
So you did it first?
Yeah. Oh, I did this before the Apex.
So and by the way, you didn't just do it anywhere. You didn't do this in Florida or Texas. You did this in UK.
Yeah.
How did they feel about it that you're doing this? Did they give you a hard time? Would they show up? Would security show up? Would UK, the politics?
I mean, we followed the rules. So, the rules were that you could do behind doors closed events, right? But no crowd. But you had to do testing. You had to put people in isolation until you got their test results. You had to keep them in a bubble.
Would they send to watch you? Were they kind of...
Yeah, the council would come down, make sure everything's in order, masks are being
Did anybody try to get in your way, or they were supposed... If you did it the right way, they didn't bother you?
I think there were a few neighbours around who were like, what is going on here?
I'm assuming this is a high-end community, the neighborhood.
Yeah, but... so. But also, I was saying to the area, Brentwood, right? Guys, you've got an international sports event taking place in Brentwood. You've never had anything in your life. The whole world is watching Brentwood right now. Stop moaning and just buy the pay-per-view.
And how much you spent on this on the backyard? The whole thing, just for the setup?
About £2 million.
£2 million?
Yeah.
So at the time, what would that be in US dollars?
$3 million.
So you spent $3 million. So was it rental, or did you buy?
No, we built this structure.
So it's still there right now.
No, it's taken down.
Where did you put it? What did you do with all the equipment?
It just gets taken away. So you're hiring the truss, you're building the truss. There's probably some better pictures as well.
You had the other one was really clean, Rob. You had one that was really clean.
Put Fight Camp Matchroom or Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, I mean that's a big AV. You got rigging, you got the That's sick.
But you the power, what that did for our business was that got the attention, because COVID was a global issue. This got look at that. This got so much exposure globally. And of course, when people say it was in your back garden, that was even, because after this, eventually we went to an arena. And we just hired an arena and did it behind closed doors. Fucking could be in the middle, it could be anywhere, right? But this was the first thing that we did.
Is there people there, Rob? Do I see people?
Yeah, this was year 2.
Now you can do it.
Now I sold tickets, which I didn't like, because I got randoms in my garden drinking. We had this, we had pizza stands, taco stands. We got all the champagne bars, and I'm like, don't get me wrong, for a fight fan, it was like once in a lifetime experience, but it was a bit weird for us, because it was like, this is my house and my head office.
This is wild at a time like that, to make sure while everybody else is scared shitless.
It was a wild time that, what is it he said? One of the rules that my dad said, I don't know, it's number 6 or 7, which was,
Which one?
I can't remember it, but there was definitely something. Look, here we go. This is the build, right? This is the year 2. So that's the hospitality tent at the back. We had DJs in there, all champagne bars, and
this is beautiful. Where is this, by the way?
Brentwood in Essex.
Wow.
It's about 15 miles outside of London.
Is this all in one? This is day 3 or day? Are you already?
So it takes about a week or so to build.
Got it. So when it gets darker, rain,
and this is summer, by the way, right? So then it starts raining, and we're like thinking, what is going on here?
Yeah, we just had our thing that we did at in our hangar, and it was pouring. And at the moment people started showing up, we're like, there's a 75% chance it's raining. Guess what happens? Stops raining.
Yeah.
And that's wild, man. So Eddie, next, what's the next big thing? If you were to say some big fights. By the way, do you watch UFC or no?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Do you like it? Do you love it, or you just kind of watch it?
I've been to a couple with Dana. Kindly got me out. I think it's compelling. I think it's. I think it's just a tremendous product. I'm very jealous of almost like the control they have over their talent, where it's like you sign a central contract and it's like, right, you are fighting him on November 30th, see you there. And your money's already there. With us, it's an individual negotiation for every fight. And it's incredible. I know.
That he is
That's why the business is so good.
Do you think because the way boxing is fragmented, it can't compete with the UFC the way
I
UFC?
feel like, boxing already competes with the UFC. Like, but people talk about boxing's dead. There's nothing like a big fight. Like in terms of the interest it generates, the numbers it can generate as well. Boxing is so historic globally. And, that's really the plan for us as a business. I mean, I've got to tell you one thing before we wrap up, because the one thing that you haven't spoken about, you got to understand a sport and a business called darts. Darts.
Mm-hmm.
This is the biggest viewed sport in the UK outside of Premier League football. We are selling 15, 20, 30,000 tickets for people to watch darts. Please Google Luke Littler 9 Darter. This kid has come on the scene at 16 years of age and has become the hottest ticket in town. We just recently did the US event at Madison Square Garden in the summer. Sold out 4,000 in the theatre there. Darts is taking over America. It is the ultimate night out experience. You need to watch the video of Luke Littler on YouTube. Wait till you see the crowd. Fancy dress.
What are you talking about?
Darts. I'm telling you now, you're going to play this conversation back. Luke Littler. Right, watch this.
Which one?
This top one. Sound. Need lots of sound.
It's that they've got...
This kid's 16.
I think Luke Littler went on the practice board. Yes. Practicing treble 20s apparently. Oh, they both were. Oh, they've changed the dartboard. They've made the treble bigger. Don't say that. People will believe you, man. You can't joke on TV. This is amazing.
20,000 people at the O2.
They were both on 9s, I'm just saying. Can he? Can he? Can he? Yes! You beauty!
16 years old.
Luke Littler is it, a 9-dart finish in the final of the Premier League of Darts. Is it one on the Pro Tour? Is it one on the European Tour? And he's looking at his watch to say, about time.
How old is the other guy?
He was
Like 27.
Is he somebody?
He's world champion, the other guy.
He's the world champion,
Yeah.
the 16-year. Now, is it common for 16-year-olds to be good at this game?
No, but already, Patrick, darts, it's a phenomenon. It's the greatest party in town. People are turning up in fancy dresses. You've got Power Rangers. You've got Smurfs, right? You've got Miss Universe. Like, look at these pictures. Look at this.
Who runs this, by the way?
We own the sport. We own the PDC, the Professional Darts Corporation. It's the governing body of the sport.
When you say we, who is we?
Matchroom.
You own the sport.
Yeah. This is about to take over America, this sport. And everyone says, when I try to explain to people about darts to people, especially people who aren't from the UK, they go, like you did, darts, right? It's like, you could watch clips of this, like, look at it. Look, where's Wally? Peter Pan, right? You got a chicken at the back there as well, right? This sport, its only competitor in terms of viewership in the UK is Premier League football.
Now, has this always been like that or no?
Yes, but lately, the last 5 years, just to put it in comparison, darts is almost twice the size of our boxing business.
What?
Yeah.
Like in revenue?
Yes.
You're joking.
And EBITDA.
In EBITDA?
Yeah.
So how much, that 16-year-old kid, how much does he make?
Probably $5 million a year.
And your EBITDA is still twice as much as your boxing.
Yeah.
And your boxing's a good size.
Huge.
See, that's the thing. The things we talked about with sales and promoting and, you know, those types of things makes you realize at the end of the day, salespeople rule the world, man.
Of course.
If you know how to sell, if you know how to promote, the rest is history. Last question for you on the Pops. When you decided to come back and work with Pops, did you guys have any rules of working together or no?
Not really, no. I mean, we always, a lot of our key people in the business, we never really recruit at senior level, or we didn't till we got to a certain size. Everybody came through the business. So Frank Smith, who's my CEO for boxing, he joined the company at 15. Matt Poulter, who runs the PDC, joined the company at 16.
What do you mean 16? Years old?
Years old.
And how old is he?
32.
Now? So the 15-year-old's now the CEO of boxing?
At 32. Matt Poulter is the CEO of PDC. He's 40 years old. Emily Fraser runs Multisport. She joined at 17. So he loves to give people the opportunity to work through the business. And that's what I always say to people within a company. You will always get noticed. There are no barriers to entry in boxing. There is no barriers to growth for you within the business. And the show that we have coming out next year, The Greatest Showman, is our Netflix documentary from the creators of Drive to Survive, Full Swing, all the big shows, Box to Box. And I pitched them the boxing version of Drive to Survive. They came in, they filmed the boxing, but they looked at the company and they went, no, we want to do it on the company, on you, on your dad, and all these different people that have come through from the ages of 15 or 16.
Story, man. What a great story, man. Let me tell you, I had no idea where the direction the conversation was going to go, but I know I was going to have a fun time. But I didn't know it was going to be this good. And I had a freaking blast talking to you. And maybe next time, if your father is ever here in town, I would love for us to do one talking together if he's ever in Florida.
Yeah.
I'd love to have that conversation with him.
You would love that.
Anyways, brother, this was great.
Thanks,
Appreciate you for
Patrick.
coming on.
Cheers.
Take care.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me and he read the book. And afterwards is like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak, working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at the society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're going to enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed your order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm going to put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey, and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review.